Following up on yesterday's video, Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom is publicly blasting Donald Trump for his fascistic power play of sending armed federal agents to an event that Newsom was hosting, announcing his legislative plan to stop Trump from rigging the 2026 midterms. And we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, here's Governor Newsom immediately after his speech yesterday addressing this power play by Trump.
As well. Well, I think it's pretty sick and pathetic. And it just said everything you need to know, the setting that we're under. That they chose the time, manner, and place to send their district director outside right when we're about to have this press conference. Said everything you know about Donald Trump's America. And that was top down. You know that for a fact. They'll deny it, I'm sure. Maybe they won't deny it. Said everything you know about the authoritarian tendencies of the President of the United States. I said it a moment ago, wake up, America. Wake up. You will not have a country if he rigs this election. You will have a president who will be running for a third term. Mark my word. I wasn't exaggerating when I said that I received in the mail a Trump 2028 hat from one of his biggest supporters. These guys are not screwing around. The rules do not apply to him. The most corrupt president in history. He doesn't believe in free enterprise, crony capitalism. He is wrecking this country, wrecking the economy. He's a lawless president. Wake up, America. Wake up to what's going on.
So we're going to play some other clips of Governor Newsom as well. He did a round of interviews with like Midas Touch and Brian Tyler Cohen. We're going to play several clips of that. But just as a reminder, this was the first footage that broke of armed Border Patrol agents approaching this event held by Governor Newsom. And more alarming than their presence was the words of the chief, the highest ranking officer there, about why he was there. Listen very carefully.
Now we're here making 360. Los Angeles a safer place since we won't have politicians. We do that ourselves. So that's why we're here today, as you can see.
So that chief was adopting a very hostile political tone. He says, listen, we're here making Los Angeles safe because we have politicians who won't do it. Adopting an aggressive, hostile tone towards elected leaders of not only Los Angeles, but California is clearly targeted towards the Democrats. Now, this guy's entitled to his opinion, but I think it's pretty ominous when he feels very comfortable saying it. Now, he's unmasked, but his compatriots there are masked, which is also a problem. If you wield the power of the state, doesn't matter if you're conservative, liberal, doesn't matter if you're law enforcement, doesn't matter if you're a judge, the sitting president, whoever, you do not have the right, as far as I'm concerned, to mask yourselves because there has to be transparency and accountability. But this guy, the chief, was unmasked, and he just said confidently, like, listen, hey, we're here basically to stick it to the Democrats. We don't believe the Democrats are keeping Los Angeles safe, and that's why we're here. Very specifically at this event at which Governor Newsom is announcing a legislative plan to prevent Trump from rigging the 2026 midterms. It is a shocking politicization of not just law enforcement, but the brazenness. It's a really fascistic power play to try to intimidate liberals, progressives, Democrats, Governor Newsom into basically rolling over and letting Trump run roughshod over California, liberals, progressives, and ultimately the American people. There was also arrests made. National Guard makes arrest outside Newsom presser after he vowed we will not be intimidated. Federal immigration officials detained at least one person outside of Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom's speech on Thursday discussing Texas's push to redistrict its congressional map, according to local news. And this is Governor Newsom's press office. By the way, if you're on Twitter, you should absolutely follow that account. They are doing the Lord's work. Trump's private army is illegally on private property. We will not be intimidated by this weak little man. U.S. Border Patrol Sector Commander Gregory K. Bavino spoke to NBC LA and told the outlet that they were, quote, conducting roving immigration enforcement patrols in the area, and one person was taken into custody. The report added that the video filmed in the area showed, quote, masked U.S. Border Patrol agents taking a man into custody near several buildings, federal buildings in the area, one of which includes a detention center. So yeah, I think with this administration, no, we're not obligated to give them the benefit of the doubt. This, as vast as Los Angeles is, as vast as California is, and given how time works, it is deeply suspicious that such a high-ranking person as that unmasked Border Patrol chief happened to be in the area, and then for him to say what he said. It would be, it would still strain credulity, but it would be much more believable if he was just like, listen, we're conducting roving enforcement operations in the area. We have every right to be here. We believe that there are undocumented or criminal migrants in the air. They didn't do that. Instead, he puffed up his chest and said, we're doing what we need to do because the Democrats won't do it. Seems really political and ultimately very fascistic. Here is a clip of Governor Newsom speaking with Brian Tyler Cohen, friend of the show.
He's no longer even feigning that he has dictatorial tendencies or authoritarian tendencies. He's acting out on them. It was an act of intimidation. It was an act, however, of weakness. Why else would you send them out? How pathetic, how small. And it's a sign of things to come. And I assure you, what you saw today, what happened here today, is going to happen tomorrow in a town near you. My biggest fear, and I said this months ago to you, is that we're going to see the National Guard federalized in other parts of the country. You're starting to see that under different circumstances, subtly in D.C. But you're going to see ICE and Border Patrol sent out to polling places and voting booths during the election. This was an act of intimidation, and that's exactly why this initiative is so important.
Yeah, so let's address that for just a second. I've got another clip I want to show you, but these two clips by Governor Newsom, they are really important. So he says in the first clip that Trump is the most corrupt president in American history. That is objectively true. There are none that come close, certainly no Democrat that comes close. Even just the financial corruption alone, we've done videos about this, and people should care, and you should make them care by signal boosting these videos and talking about it. But Trump has made $3.4 billion off the presidency. And he's only 6 months into his second term. There's no telling what that figure will be at the end of it. His corruption also extends to lawlessness as well, which Governor Newsom mentioned. That's true, pardoning violent January 6th insurrectionists while arresting people in Washington, D.C. who literally threw a Subway sandwich at a federal officer. I'm not saying that's very nice, but it wasn't a brick, wasn't a bottle, wasn't a grenade or anything like that. It was just a Subway sandwich, and they cracked down on him and charged him with a felony. But Trump will simultaneously pardon hundreds, thousands of violent January 6th insurrections. He has no principled commitment to law and order. It's just objectively true, to say nothing of his own personal lawlessness and the crimes that he committed. I digress. But what Newsom said right there in that second clip also bears rumination, because Trump federalized the D.C. National Guard over Newsom's objections, and Newsom took him to court and ultimately lost, but he tried to fight back, okay? For something that the National Guard need not have been federalized for. It was a power play. It was Trump saying, hey, Newsom, you have a big blue state, but I have certain authorities that I can abuse to basically slap you around in your own state, to try to humiliate you, to try to disempower you. I can reach out and touch you in your constituents. That's what the signal that Trump was trying to send. And he sent that message even more when he sent active U.S. duty troops, Marines, not just National Guard, but Marines, to Los Angeles. Totally unnecessary, violating decades of principle. He did it anyway. That was in California a couple of months ago. Now, Trump is federalizing the D.C. National Guard. Now, does Washington, D.C. have a crime problem? Yes. Any person who tells you otherwise is lying. Of course, there's a crime problem in D.C. It's also true that crime has fallen under Biden and then Trump. So it's not at emergency levels. And we know it's not emergency levels because Newsom's going to actually justify, he's going to explain beautifully why we know that crime in D.C. isn't justifying the National Guard response, because there are other places that have a higher crime rate than D.C., and there's no National Guard around. Okay, so we'll get to that in a second. But it's dress rehearsal. He did it in California, a blue state, a big blue state, a beacon of defiance as far as Trump is concerned. He's doing it in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, but also a liberal locus as far as Trump is concerned. He's threatening to do it in Chicago and New York. This is dress rehearsal. Why wouldn't, if you're Trump, just imagine, pretend you're Trump for a moment. Why wouldn't you, given your corruption, your authoritarian impulses, your fear, your dread, that you will lose the upcoming 2026 midterms? Why wouldn't you, if you were Trump and the presidential immunity ruling behind you in your corner, why wouldn't you deploy the National Guard to intimidate people at polling places? Why wouldn't you do that? He has every corrupt motivation and every corrupt empowerment to do so. That's scary. So yes, I think that Governor Newsom is right to be warning about this. Keep your eye on it. One last clip from Governor Newsom in which he explains why Trump's notion that, I'm just doing this to fight crime. I'm federalizing National Guards, federalizing the police. I'm doing all this shit to fight crime. Trump's full of shit.
Yeah, well, I think you should start with Shreveport, Louisiana, in Speaker Johnson's district that has 6+ times the per capita murder rate of Nancy Pelosi's San Francisco. What about the carnage, Mr. President, in Shreveport? Why aren't you protecting the folks there? 8 of the top 10 murder states in this country, red states. What bullshit. And everyone knows it. Everybody knows it. Again, it's acts of authoritarianism. It's acts of power on a person that is trying to use his formal authority, and it's depleting. And it's weak. It's increasingly weak, and it's increasingly desperate. And that's why it's important for us at this moment to meet him head on, not just rhetorically, but through substantive counteractions. And that's what we're doing in California with this ballot initiative.
Yeah, so again, red states tend to have a higher crime rate and a higher violent crime rate than blue states, number one. Number two, there are cities in red states that have higher crime rates than cities in not only California, but also Washington, D.C. And Trump has not taken aggressive action. And imagine if a Democratic president were to do that. Imagine how Mike Johnson would react if a Democratic president were to federalize the Louisiana National Guard and just send them all through, traipsing throughout red state Louisiana, cracking down on crime. Imagine Mike Johnson would be pretty pissed and sounding the alarm. But there you have it, folks. Donald Trump is full of shit. Governor Newsom is fighting back. And listen, I know Newsom's controversial for a lot of people, but Democrats, liberals, and progressives, we have all been publicly begging and demanding, rightly, the Democratic leaders step up and show grit, show fight, show tenacity, and bring the political fight, political fight to Donald Trump. Newsom is answering the call, and he deserves his flowers because, again, politicians are people, and they operate on incentive. And if we don't celebrate and reward when they start to do what we want them to do, they're going to stop doing what we want them to do. So I don't care how you feel about Newsom, if you think his policies are too moderate, too liberal. I've heard from people on both sides of this. If you want a fighter and Newsom is fighting, shut up and praise him. That's what we need to do. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.